Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to be talking about the key challenges post-Brexit the agricultural sector faces. In this speech, I intend to address these issues with solutions which I feel will be beneficial to the agricultural sector. I will also be addressing the elephant in the room that is Brexit and the key issues and uncertainty we face. In this speech, I hope to cover my ideas for post-Brexit Britain's agricultural sector and provide support for the agricultural community. Today I hope I can cover some of the major topics which are casting shadows of uncertainty over this sector, which is vital to the economy. Firstly, I'd like to focus on a major part of this sector and so heavily reliant. As members of the EU for the past 40 years, there's been the benefits of having free trade between all EU nations. This gave the opportunity of free trade with others, which allowed farmers to export so heavily. For instance, we export 40% of our sheep meat produced, and of that 40%, 96% is exported to continental Europe. By losing the sector, we will lose a large portion of sheep farms who cannot compete with price changes. This therefore could lead to shepherds having to cull their flocks. But this also applies to all sectors of meat production in the UK. We rely so heavily on European countries. The beef market is so heavily reliant that 94% of exports go to Europe free of charge. But if we were to impose small tariffs on exports, this can cause a reduction of imports from Europe. But there are other nations which will take our meat, but this would increase tax on these products. Due to the uncertainty which Brexit has thrust upon us, has created a panic with abattoirs, having exported orders being cancelled well in advance of the date due to an increase of import tax. In order to tackle such a stark possibility of a no-deal Brexit, there should be a change in rule and regulations to protect trade which we so heavily rely. In a worst case scenario, the government would have to provide financial support by putting in regulations on imports that the consumer is protected by the change in prices. By imposing quotas, this will provide stability that can match our import levels, which will provide a steady shift for the price of all meat. But this is a two-way trade agreement. This is not only export, which will be tariffed on, but this will also increase taxes on imports from Europe. The UK relies heavily on the open European market, which allows us to import the food consumed in the UK. 30% of the UK's imports come from Europe. With this, a price increase would occur with tariffs. To eradicate this problem, the government should be applying heavy pressure on the EU to provide a relaxed approach to the tax on imports and exports to keep a vital sector for both parties alive. The EU and the UK both rely heavily on trade, but with a low or no tax agreement, this can carry on. By keeping this low or no tax, this will provide the agricultural sector with well-needed support for the future. Although these questions are the first two that pop into your head, there are other major factors which need to be addressed. The EU provided regulations on every aspect of agriculture, but the EU's pesticide laws are some of the tightest in the world. This means the UK government needs to come up with a health-centred solution due to the potential severity of what this problem can cause. Although this could help deregulate and give farmers a more relaxed approach, this can cause health issues in the long run. Chemicals such as glyphosate can pose a huge threat of cancer to members of the public and farmers, and finding a solution is not only effective but health-free is the ideal situation. There are many recommendations which can be made on what the government should do. By carrying on the implementation of the tough EU regulations will reduce the chances of harm or risk. But heavy investments into how the agricultural sector can eradicate all use of pesticides in the future and have a natural balance. An investigation into new products will be which can benefit existing systems of spraying to make them accurate and beneficial to the local environment. The last section I'd like to talk about is our reliance on the EU workers, especially those in the fruit picking sector. Every year there's a huge influx of fruit pickers coming from Eastern Europe who provide seasonal help. They provide a service which a lot of UK nationals wouldn't do. This sector is so reliant in the picking summer months. The only solution to this problem is the laziness of the general public who have turned their nose up at this opportunity due to the hard work and long hours. The work ethic in the general public has got to change. There are plenty of opportunities in rural parts and their application has got to change. Applying incentives from the government to try and entice workers from the countryside is paramount. Although I'm only highlighting a few issues, these issues are a major part of the agricultural sector. As it is at the moment, the uncertainty of Brexit has left people worrying about the potential change. Nobody is certain on what could happen post-Brexit, but I have hopefully touched the surface on what can be done to protect these services. More needs to be done by the government to protect the sector, which provides so many jobs and makes so much money for the government. Thank you for listening, Harry.